Hello and welcome to the Radical Podcast, inspired by the essence of the word radical, proceeding from the root. We explore the roots of metaphysical wisdom.
This season is all about divination, tarot, and the power held within our intuition. This is The Radical with Nicole and Christina, the two metaphysical girls in the material world.
Hello, welcome to the Radical Podcast. This is Christina.
And I'm Nicole.
Today we're covering the Strength Tarot card, and one of the first tarot cards that we're covering in our second season, Journey Through the Tarot. We're recording this during Leo season. That's why we're talking about the Leo card, Strength. I'm going to go over some qualities and properties and correspondences and history. I'm going to talk about some colors and symbols associated with this card in segment 1. And in segment 2, we're going to do a card comparison from the multiple decks Nicole and I have. She's also going to take a deeper look at the numerology. Is that correct, Nicole?
Yeah, I have a few notes on the numerology of 8 because strength is the 8th card, at least in the tradition of tarot that we're using. And speaking of 8, 8/8, August 8th is the Lion's Gate portal. And because it occurs during Leo season, we're going to talk about that. And just some final thoughts on interpreting this card, personal experiences with this card, what it means to us. Lots of good stuff today.
Yes. I was just thinking, I wish I had a note about crystals in this card. I don't know why I thought that. I think I was looking at the pictures of all the 8 cards we have in our decks, all the strength cards we have in our decks. But that can be something that we bring up as we go through. But segment 3, message from the universe. I have 3 cards from the Medicine Woman Oracle deck. Oh, this deck just called to me today. I love touching these cards today. It's one of those decks that has like the gold around the edges, and the cards feel so nice and cool and to the touch. So 3 cards from the Medicine Woman deck, and I'm just going to jump right in, talking about qualities, properties, and attributes. First, we want to say that the card name is Strength. Then we were talking about, Nicole just mentioned, you just mentioned a little bit about in some decks, this card is not the 8 card. This card is the 11 card. So we're talking about the 8. And this was under the influence of the Golden Dawn right around 1888. Do you remember that? 1888 is when this happened, the Golden Dawn. Really, the Golden Dawn moved these 2 cards to align with the Hebrew alphabet, where they were overlaying over the tarot cards and the Zodiac. They switched it with the Strength card, which was number 11. And that was done specifically to match the correspondences that they were moving. So you listeners may come across a deck. One of my decks has Strength as 11. And that just means that it's following the Marseille tradition, which Thoth also followed that lineage. And it's not a problem for you to like look at the Strength card outside of the number of it. I did that. I just pulled it and put it alongside the other Strength cards. But that's why that's like that. The element is fire. The Zodiac sign is Leo. And the planet is the sun. And that's the 5th house. And it's just so closely associated with Leo. That's why it all lines up that way. There are other cards in Leo that we're going to talk about, but I would say this card, the Strength card, is more Leo to me even than the Sun card. Wouldn't you say, Nicole? Do we disagree?
I don't know. I had not really thought about it. Maybe I'll answer that during the sun episode.
Yeah,
To be determined.
I know. And I think for me, I am just so literal with Leo the lion. When I see the lion on the strength card, I'm just like, it just absolutely reinforces the imagery and the zodiac and the time of year. I was talking about the golden dawn, drawing up the correspondences. The Hebrew letter is Tet. I just read on how to properly pronounce this and it just escaped my mind. But it's TET, or also spelled TETH. It's the ninth letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and that lines up with the major arcana because we remember the fool is 0. Teth means good. The 9 links it to the divine feminine creation, the 9 months of pregnancy. The shape of the letter can represent the womb, the source of life, and a container for transformation. In the metaphysical traditions, they talk a lot about the Tet letter being the serpent, and that is because the shape of it can look like a serpent due to its shape, and that is the meaning that they've drawn historically to go with the letter. But then we have this balance between good and evil. It has a lot of duality to it. The chakra, this is where we start coming into lots of different interpretations. If you are following the solstice to solstice flow of chakra energy, with the chakra energy being the highest at the summer solstice, then the chakra associated with the strength card is associated with Leo, following Cancer right at the summer solstice. So now the chakra energy is still in the third eye, but it has done a U-turn and it's beginning to descend, just as the summer days are beginning to descend. So it's still in the third eye, but the energy is peaked and it's starting to move down. In one of my books, it listed the solar plexus as the chakra associated with the strength card for self-empowerment. And that one makes a lot of sense to me too, because of the color yellow.
Mm-hmm.
And the solar plexus, especially in Kundalini tradition, is where the heat and the prana generating pump in the body is the solar plexus. So if you look at the strength card from that aspect of you and your self-empowerment and your discipline and your courage, you can see that the solar plexus can be associated with this card. But Nicole and I were chatting about it, the crown chakra.
This one resonates with me the most. And I think it's because that infinity symbol
Mm-hmm.
is like a crown on the woman's head depicted in the strength card. And with the strength card, you do have this sense of self-discipline and self-mastery. And I do have a little bit further down when I talk about Lionsgate, a couple more notes on the crown
Mm-hmm.
chakra and the energy with Leo. But I I think out of the 3 you mentioned, crown chakra makes the most sense
Mm-hmm.
to me for this card.
I feel like I'm so grateful to be doing this journey through the tarot, to be doing this research into it and allowing myself to understand that there's not one right answer, that there are multiple ways to interpret each card. Well, there are also multiple correspondences that come from different lineages and different traditions that go with the card, and they all work. And essentially, just like when this card comes up in your reading at home, or you're reading for your friend, or you're reading for your client, it stands for what it is in that moment. And that
Mm-hmm.
could shift. It's not static energy. It's very flowing energy. So it could be the crown for you, but when your client looks at it, it's all about their willpower and their pranic pump, their solar plexus. So I'm grateful to learn to allow myself that there's not just one answer.
Yeah, and that brings up a really good point because when I think about this card after doing all this research, there's kind of this, there's kind of like two meanings that emerge. And one is like a series of meanings that align with like willpower and like our self discipline and our like our personal power. And then there's also a series of meanings that are about like the crown chakra, how we align with divine power and getting
Mm-hmm.
power from source. So it's really good to have an understanding of all the possibilities because in one situation, it might call for intense personal power, but another situation might call for a more kind of spiritual type
Mm-hmm.
power.
Yeah. It on different planes, the mental, the physical, and the subconscious and the conscious. And I am so appreciative that so much information is out there on tarot, that Nicole and I, you and I are doing this podcast right now, not 200 years ago. Well, it wouldn't be a podcast then. We'd be standing. We'd probably have a little metaphysical shop on the edge of town. but but that there's so much information out there on this, listeners. I mean, it's just a joy to be able to read so many different points of view and to understand that as we operate in the physical world, but also we have an internal mental world, and then we have a dream state. We have all these other different states of being, that this card can mean something in each one of those realms, which is fascinating. So that segues right into symbology, themes, and history. There are lots of tarot decks out there that are so intuitive to the author's interpretations. I'm just covering the main themes, main symbols. There's lots of decks that have different themes and different symbols. But generally, one of the symbols associated with this card is the lion. It's almost always, in my personal experience, a male lion. And that represents the yang energy. Generally, the other figure or character in the card with the lion is a yin character, whether that be a female, a human, a female woman or child, or even a symbol of a yin, which in one of my decks I would take to be the rose that the lion is holding. When I was talking about the letter Teth associated with this card, and it being a balance between good and evil, and it has a duality to it, that echoes this in the representation on this card, that this is a balance between the yin and the yang. Diving into, the maiden or the yin symbol, yin energy with the white robe, purity, light, the infinity symbol being on a higher level of consciousness, and the lion honestly being an animal of that yang projected energy, but also as a symbol of just the human base instincts. The theme is the balance between yin and yang, gauging. And since the yin character, the maiden or the little child, is generally uh, manipulating the jaws of the lion or embracing the animal, it's about gauging the right amount of power, the right amount of energy, It's not about overpowering something, it's about the balance between the two. Because you can look at the card in the Raider White deck, and the lion doesn't seem to be in distress, and the other character doesn't seem to be in distress. They're in harmony, they're in balance.
And I like what you said about instincts, because there is also a sense with this card of doing our shadow work
Mm.
and figuring out what makes us angry, what makes us react, what makes us fly into rage. And self discipline is tempering those reactions and having responses to them. And so that's another aspect of this card, is stepping into our power by balancing sort of our shadow
Mm-hmm.
and our light. Know thyself.
The representation on the card, the tarot decks, using symbols and colors and using all these things to help us understand or to feel a certain way. The yellow color, I often think of yellow with this card. I think the Raider White deck, I mean, the lion itself is yellow, but then the sun is yellow, and there's almost always some element of sun in almost all the other decks that I have. But yellow as a symbol of energy, but also energy in the physical realm. Going back to the Raider White deck, almost all the pentacle cards have a strong yellow color to them. The pentacles themselves are yellow, and a lot of times the sky and the pentacle cards are yellow because you're dealing with the physical realm. You can take that as meaning when you look at this card, you want to see the symbols as being in a physical space, but also the white color and the infinity symbol take you to a higher level consciousness space. Back to themes: physical level, strength, courage, standing up to a bully, standing up to a mean coworker, getting out of a relationship that isn't the best thing for you, but doing it in a way that you are not giving away too much of your power. Then on the higher level self is moving past our shadow, moving past our self-doubt, and moving past our own self-sabotage and our own mental roadblocks, our own self-limiting beliefs, to find balance and to find that higher level reasoning winning over the base. I meant to write this down, and is it id and ego? The id is the primitive instinctual part of the mind. The ego is the realistic part of the mind that mediates between the id's demands and the external world. And the superego is moral constraints. The history of this card: myths going back to Hercules defeating the lion. Did you hear the story about the person who took the thorn out of the lion's foot? It's a lovely tale or fable where the lion was super aggressive and mean, and another creature just removed the thorn from the lion's foot, and then it was able to move past that. It's different. Sometimes it's a person, sometimes it's another creature, sometimes it's, something else, but that is tied to this. My new personal favorite is Virgo and Leo. That the Virgo is the yin energy, the maiden or the child's imagery, and then the Leo is that lion, because they're next to each other in the stars. They have been brought together in our imaginations, and the first life-giving goddesses were often representative, with lions as their guardians and lions as their protectors and lions as their chariot, as leading them around in their chariots. And I really like the thought of that yin and yang energy being close together in the stars, but also being such a, a visual balance in my mind. And then to see it on a tarot card and to see it used in this context, to me, makes sense in that way, that the lion and the goddess or the maiden or the yin or the child represented so many different ways, and that balance of duality and a higher consciousness overcoming lower consciousness. And sometimes just getting to that thorn, maybe it's that you've got to find that thorn in your brain and pick it out so that you can get past what's making you not focus on what you need to move forward into, right? Thorn in your side, as we say, right?
Yeah. Sounds very shadow worky.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Numerology of 8. I love numerology.
Mm-hmm.
The very first thing is if we turn 8 on its side, it's the infinity symbol, which is what the woman in the strength card is pictured having over her head. Some themes of the number 8 include abundance and power in terms of our self-worth and our sovereignty, not fear-driven dominance or control. Alana Fairchild says this is genuine power that is about what happens for us on the inside. Genuine power is about what happens for us on the inside. I love that.
Mm.
The number 8 also speaks to self-mastery and responding versus reacting, and the empowerment that comes from knowing we have a choice. So our strength and our power comes from knowing in every single situation we get to choose how we respond. If somebody cuts you off in traffic, you can scream profanities at them or you can let it go, but it's your choice.
Mm-hmm.
And also the theme of manifestation comes with the number 8. According to Alana Fairchild, the number 8 relates to Shakti energy, goddess energy, or the yin principle. But even more specifically, we're talking about the dynamic side of the feminine aspect. And she describes this as the divine feminine energy is what turns ideas into realities, what makes fires burn, what makes water wet, what makes our lungs breathe and the planet spin. If we have been taught that the feminine is only receptive and surrendered, then the idea of the feminine also having a dynamic side might be surprising. And then she gives birth as an example of being a hallmark of the feminine energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if we took out all the mentions of me describing the numerology of 8, all of that would sound like I'm describing the strength card.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So cool.
Well, you can see why when the people who organized the Golden Dawn and were really looking to find ways to overlay the zodiac with the tarot with the Hebrew Kabbalistic traditions, that they did a switch of those two cards, but it's been done for so long and they did it with so much intention behind it that to me it feels appropriate. What I wanted to know was why it happened, and I got that answer. So now any deck I look at, I understand a little bit better. But you can see why they switched those, because the the strength card matches that energy of the 8.
And with the energy of 8 in mind, the astrological correspondence, of course, is Leo, but we can get even more specific and look at the Lion's Gate during Leo season on 8/8. This is an annual astrological alignment between the sun in Leo, the star Sirius, and Orion's belt. And these celestial bodies align with the Great Pyramid of Giza. Sopdet is, I think I'm saying that right. Sopdet is the ancient Egyptian name of the star Sirius, and its personification as an Egyptian goddess, which later became associated with the goddess Isis. Is that how you say her name? Isis?
I've always said Isis.
Okay. The star Sirius's helical rising during this time of year was aligned with the Nile River's flooding, and this marked the new year.
You know, I love a New Year's story. I love it.
Yes, yes. A helical rising occurs annually when a star and a planet become visible just before sunrise on the eastern horizon. So therefore, Sopdet/Sirius was considered, the star was considered the bringer of the new year and the Nile flood. So this brings up the energetics and the themes once again of abundance. We have a sense of fertility, rebirth, and renewal. Sirius was thought of the spiritual sun, and therefore the Lion's Gate portal is thought to be a time when there are downloads and light codes made available from us. So these downloads and light codes are said to contain higher vibrational wisdom, keys to enlightenment, and ascension information. Some New Agers will say that during the Lion's Gate portal, especially on 8/8, we can experience DNA activations, which our DNA is a double helix. It's an 8, it's an infinity
Yes.
symbol.
Mm-hmm.
And New Agers will also say that we can experience crown chakra openings during the Lion's Gate. And these ideas tie right in to our strength card.
I love it. I feel like we talked about 888 in the portals, gateways, and thresholds, but I don't recall the information. And now that we're doing this in this context, I'm like, oh, I get it. I get it. I totally understand why this is in this time of year, in this
Mm-hmm.
season, with this card, with the sun, all of it. I get all of it now.
Yeah, the portal is from usually around July 26th through August 12th, but it peaks on the 8th. And we have the numerological significance with it being 8/8, but that's also when the sun is at 15 degrees of Leo, which is the exact midpoint of the sun traveling through the sign of Leo. So I have 4 tarot decks besides the Rider-Waite-Smith deck.
Guess what? I have 4 too, besides the Raider-Waite-Smith deck. I didn't know that. I thought you had more.
I have a lot of oracle decks, but I have 4 tarot decks. So I pulled out all 4 strength cards for a card comparison. And my first deck, the Zodiac Tarot, depicts a lion gently embracing a human.
I like that. It's the other way around. Usually the yin figure is embracing the lion, like the maiden is, but this way it's like the lion is giving her an embrace. Aw.
And this made me think of the idea of being in the care of divinity, that the divine cares about us.
Mm-hmm.
My next card comes from the Medicine Woman Tarot. This was renamed. She renamed the strength card Healing. And the imagery of the card suggests Healing by coming into harmony with nature, or that nature is our source of healing and strength. This one's really cool. In my Antique Anatomy Tarot, it is a picture of a femur bone with red morning glories sort of in kind of wrapped around the femur bone. So the femur bone is the largest and strongest bone in our body, making it very, very hard to break, which is I think, metaphor for our human spirit that comes across in the strength card when we're going through a really hard time. We may feel like we're breaking, but we're actually so much stronger than we realize.
Hmm.
And the red morning glories symbolize heartfelt connection, which really ties into Leo, the heartfelt connection part, and renewal. And the color red itself conveys courage, vitality, and willpower. And my fourth and final deck, Mystic Mondays, is actually, it's a tiger. And the tiger is walking between two mountains or a pillar. And the tiger's walking directly towards us, the viewer, and has a very sort of direct gaze.
Mm-hmm.
And this card to me felt very fierce, as if this tiger is walking with this newfound, newly discovered strength and confidence. And pillars can represent perspective. So it's like that strength and confidence is the tiger's new perspective.
It's so fascinating to see all these cards at once. You have 4 cards, and I have 4 cards. I have 4 tarot decks besides my Raider White deck. And one I just got for myself when I was up in Pennsylvania. I, until very recently, only had 3. I'm going to start with my newest one. It's the Spirit Song Tarot. And in this deck, which is all animals, I'm an animal lover, and I connect deeply to animals used as symbols and in symbology. So I was very drawn to this deck. And in this deck, it's the number 8, strength, and then under strength, the author has written courage and endurance. It is an elephant with the ears out, 2 tusks, looking at you. And I would say that the elephant is standing strong. Maybe, I don't feel like it's moving towards you, but it definitely is looking at you with a full gaze. I like very much the endurance element of this, because we talked about how we need to gauge our personal power. Nicole, you mentioned if somebody cuts you off in traffic, you have the choice to yell and react, or to ignore. Do you give your energy away, or do you hold on to your energy? We have to gauge that in every moment. This elephant looking at me with its steady gaze makes me think of that endurance. My second deck is the Wild Unknown Tarot. In this deck, the strength card is numbered 11, not 8, but I still pulled the strength card out. And as we just learned, that's because it's from the Marseille tradition. I think I like saying Marseille. And tarot. It's very French. But in this deck, she has strength written at the bottom. Above is a sun, radiant sun. Not a lot of color in this card, and whatever color there is orange, and I would say yellow and orange, so it really stands out. The lion is holding very delicately a rose in its mouth, and it has the infinity symbol on its forehead. So the infinity symbol happens to be at its third eye, which calls back to the energy, the chakra energy of this card, but also that balance between yin and yang, that the lion can hold the rose, and the rose to me representing the yin qualities. In the Sacred She Tarot, she has renamed this card Compassion. It's an image of a little girl with a lotus flower in her hair, and she is on the back of and embracing a crocodile. How's that for a take on the number 8 card? And like I said, she calls it compassion. The lotus having a very strong symbology to me of strength, fortitude, and courage because of its journey through the mud to bloom in the sunshine. The crocodile being between the earth and the water, so that's that balance between conscious and unconscious. And just the word compassion to me is all about balance, right? It takes so much strength and courage to be compassionate, to gauge your response, and to be vulnerable, because to be compassionate to me is to be vulnerable. And then finally, my Secrets of the Witch's Garden. This is a number 8 card that she has called Strength as well. In this card, and I just noticed that the I would say it's a young girl, but she has red hair. And I would say the sun kind of is like behind her in this card. But a young girl has her hands on a mother bear's jaw. She has given a basket of berries to 2 little cubs. The yin figure, the young girl, has a crown of green in her hair. The infinity symbol is hovering above her head, and she also has a Leo medallion around her neck. So though there is no lion in this, it is fully represented that the author is saying this is, kind of making that connection. The bear, we could do a whole nother story about me and bears this past summer. Me and it wasn't even the summer, it's all the way from last fall, but particularly in the summer months, I've had I'll say it's irrational. I have an irrational fear of bears. So to see this card today with the balance between the yin and the yang energy and the mother bear and the cubs, it brought forth a lot of feelings that I have. I like the representation here because it is still the animal instincts and the human instincts. It's still a gentle touch versus an overpowering. It's still a caring, like a compassionate balance and an exchange between the bears and the girl. So beautiful cards. It is really cool to see all these cards all at once. How often, I mean, I've not done that before where I've taken all the cards out and looked at them together, and then to see my cards and your cards. Nicole, that's really cool.
I have a book that has a card comparison section, but I guess the decks that they've chosen to feature in their book, they don't really speak to me.
Yeah.
And I think we have selected decks that speak to us. So it's more impactful for me to see the representations in the decks that we own. And our plan is to post our card comparisons so that you can see them too.
Yes, if you have an interest in checking out the representations from all these wonderful authors and their beauty and the illustrators. That's what the word escaped me. Illustrators doing this beautiful work with all these symbols and making us feel things when we look at them. We should definitely post them.
I wrote down a few of my favorite descriptors for this card as we kind of start wrapping up here. I love diction. I love a really great word, like word choice to me is something I can nerd out on for a long time. I was an English major in college, and I used to write very long papers on the meaning of one word that an author chose to use. So this was one of my favorite parts to research and put together. So this card to me, fierce serenity, spiritual matters, thinking back to the crown chakra and deriving strength from a connection with the divine. One of the authors of one of my books said that this is the intelligence that allows one to overcome insurmountable obstacles. This card is also about mental, emotional, and spiritual endurance. Christina used that word endurance, not just physical. This is all the planes of being. Composed ferociousness, and then matters of the heart like generosity, honesty, gentleness, and courage that radiate from the inside out. And if we read this card as a person, it is indicative of healers, especially those who heal by their presence, their state of being.
Do you, when you look at the card, do you, today, which figure are you? The lion or the maiden or the rose?
I think the maiden?
Yeah, like the, I didn't think about it until I saw the picture from your deck where the lion has its arm wrapped around the maiden. Then I was definitely felt like I was the maiden. But in the other cards, I was watching it as a scene, but I didn't relate to a character until I saw that particular card. I want to be embraced by the divine. I guess.
Yeah.
Do you know? Like I thought about that. I in like that's such because sometimes you're the lion
Mm-hmm.
and you need to and or what you might be needing at that time is a gentle touch to help you regulate your roar. Or and sometimes your roar needs to come out, not to like quiet your roar. You know, the often the maiden is manipulating the jaw or the mouth, but it doesn't mean she's closing it. She could also be helping you express yourself. Is how I see it.
Yeah, and that kind of ties into the reversal. So, reading the reversed meaning, if this card comes out upside down in a reading, and I just sort of gravitated to one interpretation, but there's tons more out there.
Mm-hmm.
But if this card is in reverse, you could think of it as being guided by the lizard part of your brain or your reptilian brain, if you're familiar with that. This
Your
is the
your id part of your brain that we just learned in my little offshoot there into Freudian psychology.
yeah, and we could probably the id probably maps to this part of the brain. It's the most ancient
Mm-hmm.
part of our brain. And it's the part of our brain that when we are in fight or flight gets activated. And what happens in fight or flight is all of our thinking anatomically gets routed through the amygdala. And that's at the base of the brain in the brain stem. And it's the vigilant part of our brain that is always looking out for danger. When we are in fight or flight, and when the brain stem, the amygdala, is activated, this also means that our thinking is not filtering through our prefrontal cortex, and we don't have access to our executive functioning. Our thinking is very limited It's very survival based. When we're in that state of panic or danger, we're not fully resourced. So that's kind of that part of the brain where we are disconnected. If you think about the crown chakra, we're not thinking about our connection with the divine. We're thinking about our literal survival. But one way to get out of that state is to think about gratitude, because if we're in fear-based thinking, the remedy to that is to kind of ground and to start looking around at what's around us and being grateful for our home, our body, a glass of water, and that sort of gets us back to where we are resourced and have our executive functioning.
That all ties into the symbology and the chakras and the everything. One of my favorite decks to write a reversal, she poses questions for each of the cards, and I really connected to those questions. For me, sometimes I look at a card and I just draw a blank. And so I find that questions along with meanings is very helpful to me. I want to read the question for this card is, how can I cultivate kindness to others and myself? That's this card. That's exactly what you just said, Nicole. When you have to look around and when you're feeling disconnected from that, you have to be grateful, compassionate, and cultivate kindness. That's what this card is telling us.
And sort of dropping into your heart, and those heart-based practices are the antithesis of the reptilian brain. Generosity, honesty, gentleness, and courage become sort of the remedy. And I'm going to run through just a couple of personal experiences with this card. This card showed up a lot for me after 2 car wrecks I was in. And I was going through a really tough time. And what this card was signaling to me was it was like reaffirming my personal resilience and that I could dig deeper within myself and keep going. Yeah, I think that's all.
I don't have a story at this moment about this card except for the connection I felt right now, real time, as we were recording this, of the image of the lion embracing the maiden. And I wanted to be that maiden being embraced by the divine. And then the bear and the little girl. And it's just making me feel like my irrational fear of essentially circumstances outside of my control. And is that going to stop me from doing what I need to do? Or am I going to overcome it? Am I going to research it? Am I going to let it control me? Or am I going to rationalize it and move past it? And that's exactly what you just said, is that this card can be so many things. Sometimes you're the lion and sometimes you're the maiden. Sometimes you're, the sun. Sometimes you're just watching them. It depends on where we are in our lives when we look at the card, what it means. Are you ready for the message from the universe? The
Yes.
Medicine Woman Oracle Deck by Catherine Maillard. I have 3 cards. I thought I was going to have 2, but it was 3. So 1, 2, or 3. Card 1 is Spirit of Air. The message, Spirit of Air, it happens to be card 18, And on the card, it says, a favorable wind is blowing on your life. The message from this card is, I am the spirit of air. I am breath, fresh or warm against your nose. When I entered your lungs, I was your first cry. I fill the sails of ships to navigate the fabulous oceans of your life. I am movement, trade winds, breeze, zephyr, or sirocco. I imbue each patch of your land with the taste of my breath. I am the resource of your phenomenal flight towards a light-filled destiny. I am the dance of ferns in the depths of forest. I am release. I release the how do you say this word? Superfluous.
Superfluous.
That's it. Superfluous from your life. Unseen yet present everywhere. I am life. The guidance for Spirit of Air is, this card invites you to play with air and taste the joy of lightness. Be like a feather, listening to your divine resonance where light glitters. Be like a leaf, letting itself get caught up in the dancing upon the wind's invitation. Let go. Perhaps you feel weighed down by a situation, relationship, or place with a heaviness of body or heart. It is time to rise above and spread your wings. The spirit of air in your reading also means that new love or work-related opportunities are presenting themselves. The winds are favorable to you.
Mm.
Card 2 is grounding, and grounding is card 29. And on the card, it says, being well grounded provides a feeling of security. The message from this card, we are like majestic trees in a sacred forest. When we are well grounded, we gracefully lift our branches towards the sky to receive information, and we take care of ourselves and our community. We preserve the memories of the past and witness our own destiny. Good grounding gives a feeling of being in your rightful place and makes it possible to bring your projects and dreams for the future to life. Because we are manhandled by our lifestyles, without a powerful and fertile inner world, we live off the ground. It can be difficult for us to set boundaries, bringing a feeling of insecurity. Guidance for this card. You may be feeling harried by parasitic thoughts and mental chatter, which bring with them agitation and difficulty in making your aspirations a reality or making others respect your territory. It is time to relink with your ground connection, your grounding, to bring yourself back to precious presence of your own self and recapture your ability to carry out your projects. Your priority is to reestablish your sovereignty and be the queen of your kingdom. All right. Third card, your body's power. Your body is yours. Celebrate your temple. I just noticed this is card 8.
Oh.
Message from this card, I am irresistible strength, the doorway to your soul. I am your temple, your place of power, your loyal messenger. A woman's body is a complete mystery, a world of its own, sequenced according to its monthly cycle and blood. It experiences powerful phases throughout its life: adolescence, maturity, breastfeeding, menopause. The female body embraces the tumult of pleasure and emotions. Object of desire or powerful ace of seduction. Throughout time, it has been disgraced or adored, battered or worshipped. Reappropriating your body is a priority. Your body is yours. Guidance for this card. Your life stories have made you who you are. Your body carries the memory of taboos as well as pleasures. You have probably experienced the power of your body, released through orgasm and giving birth. This card invites you to love your body resolutely and reappropriate it. Do you know it well? It is time to trust in your body and reconnect with your uterus, your seat of power. Be sure you are truly on the side of love, banishing all too often negative judgments.
Those were powerful.
I'm like tearing up. Your body's power.
Card 8.
Oh,
Thank you, universe.
thank you, universe. Oh my gosh. Sometimes the universe is...
And thank
Sorry,
you,
I'm
listeners.
speechless.
Thank you, listeners. We will be back next week, still in Leo season. And the cards that we are discussing are from the Minor Arcana, the 5, 6, and 7 of Wands. So we will talk to you then. We love you.
Take care. Be safe, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode. The Radical Podcast is created and produced by Nicole and Christina.
Music by Van Horton. His Instagram is Van Horton Music. Stay in touch with us at linktr.ee/theradicalpodnc.